Hi, I'm Erica.
And I'm Lynn. And this is the third segment in our series on our Hugs and Kisses wall hanging baby quilt behind us.
Yes.
And this segment we're going to do, this is the traditional block called the red and white cross.
Right.
But we're calling it our Kisses block. All right, so should we just get started with this?
Let's just get started. Let's just jump right in because this is the most challenging block of all of three of them.
Yes.
So let's just jump in.
All right, so again, we're using our 8-inch cube, and the dies we need are the 5 and the 7.
Right.
All right, so we've got the challenging parallelogram.
That's right.
All right, and then half square triangles. So what we're going to cut, we've got a complete block here.
Right.
We're going to work on this one that we're still putting together. And we are going to cut 6 layers of the white on the half square triangle.
And that's going to give us all the white half squares that we need to finish one block in this. We've got 8 of these kiss blocks in our quilt.
That's right. And then I'm going to show you a little trick with the parallelograms.
Perfect.
For fabric savings. And also you want to keep in mind, you can see here that the parallelograms, they need to be right sides together so that we've got them facing in the right way.
So that we've got those mirror images.
Right. So want to make sure, again, that your fabric strips are facing together. Now what I've done here is I cut this on the lengthwise grain, so if I had my salvage, it would be running down here.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to show you why. So set your die on your cutter, and then you're just going to layer your strips this way so that your length of strip is running this way.
Right, because you always want your lengthwise grain going lengthwise through your cutter.
Right. Okay, so then we've got the Go Big cutter, so we can run these through at the same time.
Okay, perfect.
And we're going to make 2 cuts this time. All right, so here we've got all of our white.
We've got all of our white that we need. So we've done all of those white for 1 square and 1 pass, which is great.
There you go. And then before I talk about this, we do need 4 green half squares.
Right, so that's going to be 2 layers then.
Okay, so that'll be my second cut. And then with our parallelogram, so here we've got these are our right sides together.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So then for fabric savings, see what I'm doing? I'm just shifting this over. So then what I can do is just line that up, that angle there. And then that's going to cause me to save.
It's a great tip. It's going to save you a lot of fabric. And you can go ahead, you could trim those edges off the front, or you can just be careful when you feed it through.
Right, and then that's what we're going to do.
We know Lynn's going to be careful, so we're going to trust her.
Get this one started, and then I'm going to run that one through at the same time.
Perfect.
Okay, and then we slide that off, and there you can see where we've taken that. We've got more parallelograms.
That's right, we've got more parallelograms.
Right.
This is our challenge to say, too.
But there's your fabric savings rather than flipping those the other way. So little tip there, and then we've got our green half squares all cut perfectly.
Right.
Oops.
So the first thing we would do then, we'd need to do 2 pieces to put together this first section of our cross. And we would go ahead and do our half square triangles, do the green and the white there, and I actually have one already sewn together. So that would be that tip. So that's going to form that corner up there. Then we're going to take our parallelograms. Now, a really important thing to do, especially with this one, is to have a sample out there to go ahead and sew one through as a test, just to make sure that you're doing it right. And I'm going to keep this as my guide because we found that in working with this, you need to be really sure you're double checking yourself that you're sewing your parallelogram correctly. So we want to be sure we're sewing that way. We do want to sew from the bottom up to the top. Now our assembly on this, Lynn, is going to be what we call a Y seam. And that's a little bit more challenging. So we actually are going to use some more tools because it's a partial seam so that we can fit that all together.
Right, and a lot of people, a lot of quilters are a little bit afraid of Y seams.
A little bit afraid of Y seams. I'm going to mark in a 1/4 inch.
Okay, from the
edge. That would be where my seam allowance is. And then I'm going to mark a 1/4 inch up from that point too. So
Okay.
we've got a good 1/4 inch stopping place there for us. And I want to make it kind of big because I want to be able to see it, but I also want to make sure I don't get carried away. So I'm going to take a pin and put it through that dot. And this is just going to help me remember to stop, but it's also going to help it make it a little easier to see that. And again, this is definitely a case where I would say to grab some scrap fabric and do a test sample to practice on if you're not familiar with this technique.
Instead of starting with your...
Instead of just starting with your project fabric, because we hate it when we run out. And again, I've got a clear foot on here, but it's still not the easiest to see. So I'm going to pull this out a little bit. And then it is also important to go ahead and do a back stitch or two, because you don't want that pulling out. It's going to cause us a problem in the end. Now, hopefully we've got that correct. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take my square, and I've marked my 1/4 inch on my square as well. I want to pull this extra out of the way.
So now are you waiting to press that?
Oh, you know what, Lynn? I think it might be easier. You're right. If I went ahead and pressed this open, let's do that. Let me just set that seam really quickly. And this is one that we're going to press open, and you'll see that in the directions. And it's just going to help it lay a little flatter in the end, especially with this Y-seam technique. Thank you for stopping me.
Oh, well.
So you want to pull it open. You want to take your square, and I want to make sure I don't sew myself into a corner here, but you're going to get those ends marked right together. And then again, I'm going to make use of a pin to help me remember to stop sewing and help me see where my mark is.
Okay, so there you're still stopping at a 1/4 inch.
So I'm still stopping at a 1/4 inch there. Now you're going to see that little tip of the parallelogram up there. That's perfectly normal. That's what's going to happen because it is a true parallelogram and it does not have that tip chopped off, like we do our dog-eared corners on our triangles. And you do, of course, want to be careful if you're using a pin like I am, you don't sew your pin in and you don't hit your pin because you don't want to hurt your machine. And you can even pick up your, if you can't see your dot, go ahead, pick up your presser foot and take a look. I can see my dot well enough to know I'm right on it, so I'm going to go ahead and anchor that. It's a little bit more stopping and starting, and then we're going to be able to turn. Again, take this, pull it out of your way. You don't want to have what the nice lady that taught me how to sew would call it a bunchy. So we're going to put that out, pull that out. Again, you can tell where that tip is. You've got that mark. And again, I'm going to put a pin in there to stop myself. I'm going to make sure that I'm lined up. We've got our little tip end there. That's okay. Go back to the sewing machine one last time with this piece. And you'll see I'm sewing a little slowly because I don't want to, kind of like sewing surgery there. Okay, and check it, take a look, see if you're on your point. If you're not, you can always go back in. If you need to go back in and add a stitch, you sure can. And we're going to pull that out. Well, I think we did pretty well here, Lynn.
Right.
When you pull it out, you can go ahead and again we're going to press, and it's going to tell you it likes to press. If you press it out like this with it pressing down with that 1/4 square kind of pointing down towards the bottom of that parallelogram pair, that when you turn it over is going to give you a nice flat look right there. And then what we'd need to do would be the easy part of the square. We're going to go in, put more of those white half square triangles on either side, and you can see that it's going to line up just perfectly along the edge of that parallelogram right there. And when we sew it up, we're going to have our nice 1/4 square of our block.
Now I like to cut these little dog ears off before I put
I do too. Now
Okay.
we're a little spoiled because with a regular triangle, those are cut off for you with our AccuQuilt dies. With the parallelogram, you do have that tip, so you do need to go back, do that extra stitch. Just take that extra bulk out of your seam.
Well, thank you for showing us how to do that. That is definitely an advanced technique, and it's great to know, and another useful way to use your cube.
And again, practice makes perfect. So we don't always like to do it, but really doing a sample block is going to save you in the end.